Let me start off by saying I stuck with who is currently on the US dollar bills. Anyone could pretty much argue who should or shouldn't be remembered through time as time continues to go on, and we learn more about the past. So I just wanted to make things simpler, and I just stuck with what I was given on each bill. Now, before starting, we do need to take a look at a US dollar bill. Ironically, I only have a $2 bill, but essentially if we look closely at this bill for a while, you can pretty much see the US dollar bill focuses primarily on intricate detail, symmetry, and the person that's on the front. So to not be completely American and be stupidly biased, I originally started this project by looking at other popular currencies in the world and comparing what their designs were to ours. So I'm in Orlando for work, and there is just the workstation we're gonna be going with, but I'm just gonna show you a 1-second tour. Desk, kitchen, couch, bedroom, closet, mirror, other mirror, giant bathroom, and now we can crank out the video. So the ones I took into account, I just looked up the most popular types of currencies, so that ended up being euros, Swiss francs, pounds, sterlings, and Japanese yen. Now after looking and doing some research about these other currencies and how they were laid out, and seeing what's currently on the US dollar bill, we can now kind of come up with a list of things that I want to keep and things I definitely want to change. But I wanted to keep it green because that I feel like is iconic. I wanted to keep it monochrome because Americans are dumb, and so I think it just makes sense to have money be green. I also wanted to keep the denomination of the bills, so the value, if it's a $1, $5, whatever, that would go in the corner at a larger scale. Texture pattern I think is really iconic, and I think that's for like security reasons. That was one of the important things that I was researching, finding what they want to have bills include, and it has to like have high security because people can just copy it. So if it's detailed with this like intricate twirly pattern, all the bills I thought would make sense to be the same size, unlike the euros, just because I think that's actually not common from currencies that I saw across the world. A lot of bills vary in size depending on its value. I personally think Americans are lazy. They like one thing and that's it. Ironically, that is a monopoly. But the point is that it's just not separate because, you know, people don't even really carry cash anymore in their wallet. But if it's just one size, it'll be simple. And then the photos of the historic figures and the places of what's on the back, I think just for simplicity's sake, I wanted to include that. Moving on to things to change, we have the pattern. Yeah, that can get out of here. The symmetry, that also can get out of here. That's been here since 1775 and it's a little outdated. The back as a whole, I'm just gonna say that briefly because there were a ton of things I changed about the back. But I just think it's boring and not efficient and useless and a lot of more points. Moving on to the last thing of what's required, I actually ended up doing some research about what literally has to be on a bill for it to be legal. And I found out there are like 7 things. So you have to have obviously the amount number or the denomination, so how much the bill is worth. Declaration of legality, this is like the small print saying this is to pay debts, public and private, is just legal garbage. Include the bank name, so like issue or authority. Like the badge on the left or that seal basically says which mint or location it came out of. The date, obviously. The serial number, so the green text that you see on the front. Signatures, this is like the treasury and the secretary or whatever. I can't really remember. I have my notes here to like talk, but I cannot remember what it looks like. I'm gonna curve that a little bit, get rid of the name because no one knows who the fuck that is. I'm just gonna keep the 2, secretary and treasury, in script font. I'm gonna keep it. Now that's everything that's required, or at least I guess, what I considered to be enough to be required. Now that we have an idea of what we want to change based on the research from looking at other currencies, seeing what we want to keep and what we want to change, and what we kind of legally have to have as requirements, we can finally start. First place I started was the location where George Washington's face would go on the bill. Just looking at new US dollar bills on like 5s, 10s, you'll see the faces have generally started to move more to the left and they're not as kept in a frame like the $1 bill, which I actually think is a really good move to make the bill feel more lively and more modern. Ironically, George Washington is still the only bill where he's just chilling in the middle of the bill. He hasn't shifted left or right. So I thought shifting his face placement to the left and sizing it up didn't feel too different to what the newer bills kind of look like, but then also feels more modern because when you look at other currencies, pretty much all of them also have the figure to one side and they're large scale. They're not crept in like a circle. Next thing was the fonts. Now I actually thought about these fonts for like a day or two before I even started designing because I knew this was pretty much the main point of the design. Like it was gonna take a lot of time, which it did. I ended up finding like 10 different fonts just to test out through Photoshop of what would look best and what's legible and what kind of signifies power in a way, or like foundation where it didn't look too fancy. It was readable. It wasn't like cartoony. I don't know. I looked for fonts, took a while. And also if you look at the US dollar, for no reason, there's 10 fonts on the bill. I don't even think I'm kidding. There's so many fonts. You have the script of the Secretary of Treasury, that's one font. You have the signatures of each person on the side, technically a second font. You have the font of the number or denomination of the bill. You have the United States of America at the top. You have the Federal Reserve note, which I think is the same as the value of the bill written in words. You have the Courier like typewriter style for the serial number. You have a really small thin sans serif for the legality notice. You have two seals, which technically that's more fonts. You have the year placed in the bottom right. So I basically had a lot of options to choose from. So I kind of found fonts similar to those, but not exact, but not as many. Because again, I didn't want to overcrowd this. I wanted to simplify it in the design because it looks like it's from 1700s because it was. Next were the two badges that go in the front, and this was the Federal Reserve seal, I believe, and the US Treasury seal, which these, fun fact, not easy to find, at least in a transparent PNG background. I had to do some Photoshop manipulation to like get it to look the way it needed to be. But I put those on the front just to keep the cohesiveness of what it is today, because theoretically, if this was made, you wouldn't want huge differences, so people would still understand it's the US currency. Now the back. I don't know about you, but the back is pretty damn useless. Currently on the 5, 10, 20, 50, and $100 bills, there are at least relevant buildings in relation to the figure on the front. However, the $1 bill, there's just no building. There's just two random seals on the back. Probably not random for me. And then it just says 1. Which is another font. So when I was originally coming up with ideas for the back, I was taking a ton of inspiration from the euros, because on the euro, they actually have the dollar or currency amount written vertically, so it's easier to count, or at least I think that's why it's there. I thought this made perfect sense, because when you hand someone money, right? If you hand it and it's written vertically, they can see the amount of money that they're getting when you hand it to them. Versus right now, right? Crispy $2 bill. If I went to hand you this, right? Well, first of all, you can't even see the goddamn fold. There's no way to know how much you're getting from this view. You have to turn it sideways or flip it over, which I think could be improved. So to prioritize efficiency, that's exactly why I put the numbers pretty much copying the euros in that vertically lined space. And also, if you're trying to count while spreading, don't mind me flexing, these are just all twos. You can't do it like vertically. Like if you were doing it like this, because everything's at an angle. It would be the easiest to just see horizontally. So again, trying to put efficiency forward here. Another problem with the back is it gives zero information or clue about what the seals are, what's on the front, who the hell the person is, or just anything in general. It's just designs. And because the US education system is the way it is, I think we should change that. I think it makes sense to include kind of like a little 5-sentence bio or summary depicting or talking about who is on the front and why they're even like worth mentioning or keeping on a bill that we pass around and buy things. Because that's pretty significant. That person is just in history forever. That's what, like, they're the face of how we trade. So I included a little bio of George Washington above the denomination or the value, the number at the bottom. Now, originally when designing this layout, I wanted to make the text that is of the bio kind of split over a secondary photo of the person on the front. And I was looking more like the vision board style, like when you go for a vision test, you know, with like the letter things, and it goes from top down where the sizing of the text gets smaller. I ended up running into a bunch of problems with like the centering looking off. The text was like hard to keep the leading consistent when it was all in one paragraph. It just was much more complex than I thought. So I ended up having the name of the figure be on the left side. So there's kind of like a dear blank name, like on a letter, like a easy place to start. And then I started the bio under there. And then I lined up all the text so everything was completely aligned in like a rectangle shape, so it was easy to read, and then it sized down the further you read. So it kind of like almost was inviting for you to read. Like the first sentence has a little amount of words, so it's easy to read, and then if you want to keep reading more, you could. And because it's 2024, I got all the research for the 5-sentence bio from ChatGPT, because if you don't know who's on each bill, you would probably learn through looking them up on ChatGPT. Now, another thing I wanted to improve and make more efficient about the bills is how to identify what bills you have. Like if they were in your wallet or they were placed vertically, similar to like I was showing before. Euros do this by being actually very different per bill. So like, first of all, each bill is a different color, which kind of makes sense. Same with like Canadian dollars, but they also vary in sizing. So like if you see or you hold one of the bills, they're actually a bit bigger than like the smallest denomination value. Americans are pretty simple and like just one answer because lazy. So I think if I made them varying sizes, people would probably get pissed that it wouldn't fit in their wallet and stuff. Even though most people don't use cash today, I still think it made sense to have everything be one size. And I didn't want to change the color like I mentioned before, so my first idea was to go with the border of the bill and change that. That way, when you are spreading every bill, you can kind of like get a general idea of the border, if they're like different colors, what it would look like. But I didn't want to use drastic colors like a rainbow, because again, I think that would just be too distracting and it would take away from the whole monochromatic green is money simple feel. So the next thing I jumped to was, oh, what if I just color or take a shade off the bottom left corner. So that way, when the bills are in your wallet, you can see just from the corner, it doesn't take up the whole side of the bill. And if you were gonna do a spread, if it was the bottom left corner, theoretically, you could just see, I mean, this doesn't help, these bills are curved. But if they were straight, you could like just read off the bottom left corner without even seeing the number on the bill. And again, to keep it monochromatic and green, I went with a monochromatic green color scheme. This way you could just look at the colors while counting or through a spread, and you would know what bill you have or what bill you're about to count next without actually having to spread all the bills out. And this was pretty much all my beef with the back. Took it from not being functional or useful at all, and I changed it into what I think is a lot more efficient if you still use cash. Lastly, to give the front a bit more depth, I went and took the photo that they usually had on the back, so whether it was the US Capitol, the Lincoln Memorial, whatever, I took that and put it on the front under the badges, just again, added more depth, and I think it made sense to have kind of two photo elements because the back was completely full. Now, if you remember, I said George Washington's back of the bill just says 1. It's dumb. And if you look at the back of a $2 bill, this is supposedly the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which George Washington didn't sign. I didn't know that. So originally I was going to put that as a photo on the back, but I did look up some other things he signed, like the Constitution. So I took a photo of the Constitution being signed. That sounds so AI, just fake. But I took a painting of that and then put that as the photo for the $1 bill. Now it came from making the pattern, and this took quite a long time. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know Photoshop like to that degree where I just messed around with the filter gallery and I could just like mess around so much I figure out the effect. But thankfully YouTube knows how to do this. So I was looking up tutorials, and Joseph Blaze, he's like a crazy good thumbnail designer. Go check him out if you don't know who he is. I'll probably link him below. He does all the thumbnails for pretty much every major YouTuber, like Mr. Beast, Sidemen. So that's why I trusted him with the money effect. And again, turned out perfect, and it's pretty much 3 simple steps. It made me really feel dumb, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, I went back and forth doing this on the photo, then I applied these effects to the photo that is underneath the seals, and then applied it again to the photo of Washington on the back. So I had 3 total photos with the same effects. And then to make it actually look like paper, I added a paper texture effect that went over the course of the entire bill. So this is the US $1 bill redesign. I'm actually extremely happy with how this turned out. Took about 6 hours. I think my favorite part is it doesn't look like my stereotypical cartoony vector-based style. But do you know how cool it would be to have all the bills, 1, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100? So I did that. After the first template, it actually wasn't that hard. It just took a long process to like get each bill to look the same. So I take the new photo of the figure's face or whatever, put that on the front, put the picture of the location or building on the front as well, put it on the back, apply the pattern on the front, then on the front photo, then on the back photo. Then I'd have to go in and change the 5-sentence bio from ChatGPT, go back and forth, put that on the back, make sure that the verbiage was like the correct amount of space so it didn't overlap with the mask of the figure's face. And then it could run all the way down so it looked smooth and it flowed and there was no extra spaces that would make it hard to read. Now, if you're somehow following along at home, or if you're wondering, money mockups are very limited with options, meaning you have to pay. But I did find one, and when I mean one, I mean the only free version of one, which was pretty good. I mean, it came with like the band if it was like a stack of the dollar bills. Only problem was the band in the middle was like one layer. I couldn't delete it. Also, the smart object kept glitching out. I don't know what happened, but every time I tried to change the color, it would just have like a really sharp cutoff. So it took me, I think, a whole extra hour to hour and a half just to make my own kind of custom smart object to get the band around the money to not be glitched. And it still isn't even like a legit band. But after 12 total hours, we have every single US dollar bill redesigned, besides the twos because twos are completely pointless. But we have them laid out with the front and back. I ended up making way too many mock-ups, so I'm gonna show them all on screen now because I don't want all that time to have been wasted. But I got multiple angles of each bill with the front and the back, and then I got them all laid out with the front and the back put together so they kind of looked like a unit and together. And then I had them all laid out on their back to see what it would look like if you flipped them over. Then to give a demonstration to like the idea of them spreading out with the bottom left corner color scheme idea, I made a mock-up showing like what it would look like if the bills were stacked and how easy it would be once you're familiar with the colors of like how you would count them without having to see the actual dollar amount on each bill. And then I also made it as a mock-up into a literal spread. So I made like literally 25 mock-ups that I'm probably not gonna be able to show all of you. It looks really good. I'm super excited with how it turned out. Let me know what you think about these redesigns. I know money in general or a currency design takes a fuck ton of time because if you look at all the design, like the intricate designs that go on each bill, like this would take forever. I can't even imagine like doing that by hand. And let me know what you think. I know people usually don't use cash nowadays, but I think this is like a dope way to make the bill most efficient. It's actually educational. And if it were up to my decision, I'd make it out of the unrippable paper like Canadian money, because why is the thing you trade with breakable? Hope you guys enjoyed. Please make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.